All right, so we're diving into a really fascinating field today, prepping for an interview as an import-export specialist in live animals.
Definitely niche.
Yeah, talk about niche. But hey, that's where the real interesting stuff is, right? And lucky for you, we've got all your RoleCatcher resources ready to go, career guides, interview questions, even some AI tricks to help you just absolutely ace this thing.
We're going to cover it all.
Ready to dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, first things first, that classic question. What motivated you to pursue a career as an import-export specialist in live animals? It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
And it's more than just saying, I love animals.
Right. You've got to go deeper than that. I mean, everyone loves animals. This is where you show you've really thought about this specific career. Why this one? Why not, a vet tech or something?
So what are some things that people could say to really stand out?
Well, the RoleCatcher Career Guide mentions a couple things that are pretty tempting, like high demand.
Always good.
Yeah, job security, right. But also think about the fact that you're working with a huge variety of species, maybe even traveling internationally.
Oh, yeah, jet setting with exotic animals.
Exactly. So tap into what really excites you about this specific job.
Find that personal click.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get real for a second.
Okay.
The world of imports and exports. It's a jungle out there.
Oh, yeah, a regulatory jungle.
So how do you show in an interview that you can handle all of that?
Well, they're almost definitely going to ask you about the regulations.
Like straight up.
Oh, yeah, something like, what are some of the key regulations that govern the import-export of live animals, and how do you stay up to date?
Okay, so what are the big ones?
Well, CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, is a huge one.
CITES, yeah, I've heard of that one.
But then you've also got the Animal Welfare Act,
Right.
and knowing both is really going to make you stand out.
Okay, so knowing your stuff is important.
Absolutely.
But now let's up the stakes a bit. Imagine you're in the interview, everything's going great, and then they hit you with this. What are some of the challenges that arise in the import-export of live animals? And how do you address those challenges? What's going through your head?
Besides, maybe don't panic.
Right.
It's all about showing them your problem-solving skills. Logistics are a given. Things are going to go wrong.
Always.
But the career guide also mentions things like ethical concerns and animal welfare.
Like tough stuff.
Yeah, and the interviewer wants to know that you've thought about those downsides, not just the exciting parts of the job.
So it's about being honest, but with a can-do attitude.
Exactly. Like, yes, there are ethical dilemmas, but here's how I approach them.
Love it.
Talk about contingency plans, working with different groups, always prioritizing the animal's well-being.
Show me you're not just a dreamer. You're ready to handle the real-world stuff.
Exactly.
And speaking of real-world stuff, there's always paperwork mountains of it.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you tackle that interview question about permits and documentation?
That one usually sounds like this. How do you ensure that all necessary permits and documentation are in order? It's all about being organized, detail-oriented.
Dotting your I's and crossing your F's.
Precisely. You've got health certificates, import licenses, all kinds of things to keep track of.
Easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, but actually RoleCatcher's AI can be a huge help here.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It can flag missing documents, even help you fill things out correctly based on the specific job you're applying for.
Wow. So it's like having a superpower.
Pretty much.
Okay, let's move on to something I think is really at the heart of this job, ethics.
Definitely.
How do you go beyond just saying, I care about animals in an interview?
That question usually comes up as something like this. What are some of the ethical considerations that arise in the import-export of live animals, and how do you address them?
Big question.
This is where you have to prove it with concrete examples, like, if I was transporting marine mammals, here's how I would make sure their welfare was prioritized.
I like that.
Yeah, or talk about working with conservation groups. You're showing them you're not just following the rules, you're actively thinking about the impact on the animal.
That's huge.
It is.
Okay, so you've aced the ethics round. You're feeling good. Then they ask about risk. What keeps you up at night as an import-export specialist?
Honestly.
Yeah.
Disease outbreaks are a big one. Animals getting sick during transport.
Yikes.
But also injuries, even things like regulatory changes or natural disasters.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
It's a lot to worry about.
It is. But that question, what are some of the risks associated with the import-export of live animals and how do you mitigate those risks, is all about showing them that you're proactive.
Thinking ahead.
Right. Again, think about specific examples. If a shipment was delayed because of weather, here's my backup plan.
So it's about showing them that you're already thinking 2 steps ahead.
Exactly, and that you're not just mitigating risk for the company, but for the animal's sake, too.
Okay, now let's talk logistics. What experience do you have with transport and logistics in the context of the import-export of live animals? This feels like where your actual skills come in.
Absolutely. This is where you talk about any certifications you have, past work experience, all of that. But don't forget to talk about your philosophy as well.
Your philosophy.
Yeah, safe, humane transport has to be the top priority.
Of course.
And RoleCatcher can actually help you out here too. It can give you insights into best practices for different species and even flag potential issues based on the job you're applying for.
So it's like having a personalized guide to navigate those tricky logistical situations.
Exactly, and it shows that you're going above and beyond to not just get the job done, but to do it right.
I love that. And speaking of doing it right, that leads perfectly into a question that I think really gets to the heart of this job. How do you ensure that animals are transported safely and humanely in the context of the import-export of live animals?
This is where your passion and your experience really come together.
It's the big one.
It is. You can talk about things like proper housing during transport, minimizing stress, maybe mention specific techniques you'd use for different species.
Yeah, like a little kangaroo pouch for a sugar glider or something.
Exactly. It's about showing you've thought about the details. You also want to talk about monitoring systems, making sure there are clear protocols in place if something goes wrong.
Like if a bird gets its feathers ruffled.
Exactly. You got to be prepared.
Okay, so you've nailed all the animal welfare stuff, but now let's talk about something that makes a lot of people squirm. Salary expectations.
Yes, the dreaded salary question.
What are your salary expectations? It can feel so awkward.
It can, but luckily, the RoleCatcher Career Guide gives you a good starting point.
Okay, so what are we looking at here?
The average range for this role is between $40,000 and $80,000 per year.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty big range.
It is, because a lot of factors come into play, like location, your experience, the specific company.
Right.
So do your research. See what similar jobs in your area are paying. And think about what you bring to the table. Don't be afraid to aim high, but be realistic too.
So know your worth, but be flexible.
Exactly.
Okay, now for another classic interview question. What is your greatest weakness?
Oh, this one feels like a trap.
Right. Like, are they trying to trick me?
They kind of are, but think of it as an opportunity to show self-awareness.
Okay, so how do you answer without totally sabotaging yourself?
The key is to choose a weakness that's relevant but not a deal breaker. Like, I can be a bit of a perfectionist, which sometimes slows me down, but I'm working on delegating tasks more effectively.
So own the weakness, but show you're working on it.
Growth mindset. That's what they want to see.
I like it. Okay, now for a question that always makes me nervous, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult situation at work. What if you've never actually had a difficult situation?
Everyone has. Think about a time when things didn't go as planned and how you handled it.
Okay, I can think of a few of those.
Exactly. Maybe a shipment was delayed or an animal got sick. Use the STAR method.
STAR?
Situation, task, action, result. Walk them through it, highlighting your problem-solving skills, how you stayed calm under pressure.
So turn a negative into a positive.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher's AI feedback can be really useful for this kind of question. It analyzes your answers and gives you tips on how to structure them better.
Oh, that's cool.
It is now for the question. That's your chance to really shine. Why should we hire you?
This is where you bring it all together, right?
It is connect your skills and experience to the specific requirements in the job description. You need someone who's super organized and passionate about animal welfare. Well, here's how my experience demonstrates that.
Show them what you're made of.
Exactly. Be confident, let your enthusiasm shine through. And again, RoleCatcher can help you tailor your answer to the specific company's values.
So it's about showing them you're not just qualified, you're the perfect fit.
Right. Now the tables have turned. It's your turn to ask questions. Do you have any questions for us?
Don't waste this opportunity.
Definitely ask about the company culture, maybe career progression opportunities, something like, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the team right now? That shows them you're already thinking ahead.
Engaged and proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now for a future-focused question, what are your long-term career goals?
This is where you show them you're in it for the long haul.
Right. Talk about growth, maybe specializing in a certain type of animal or moving into a leadership role, but tie it back to the company. Like, I'm really passionate about marine mammals, and I see your company as a leader in their ethical transport, so I'd love to. You get the idea.
Ambition plus alignment with their values.
Now let's talk about those last few minutes of the interview. Those last few minutes, they can really make or break you.
Oh yeah, first impressions are important, but so are last impressions.
Exactly. You've answered all their questions, but now it's about leaving a lasting impact.
So how do you do that?
Well, sometimes they'll ask, is there anything else you'd like us to know?
Oh, I hate that one. It feels like a trick question.
It can be, but it's not about repeating your resume.
Good, good.
It's about maybe showcasing something that didn't come up earlier. Like maybe you're fluent in another language that's relevant to the job, or you have some volunteer experience that shows your dedication.
So it's like your chance to add that extra little sparkle.
Right. And RoleCatcher can help you identify those hidden gems in your experience that might really resonate with the company.
Oh, that's cool. Like it can analyze the job description and be like, hey, mention that time you rescued a parrot.
Exactly. And then finally, the all-important thank you.
Oh, yes. Got to have good manners.
Express your gratitude for their time. Reiterate your enthusiasm. Something like, I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I believe my skills and passion would make me a great asset to your team.
Short, sweet, and memorable.
Exactly. And remember, even after the interview, RoleCatcher can help you craft that perfect follow-up email.
Keep that momentum going.
Exactly.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from tackling those tricky interview questions to really highlighting your strengths.
And don't forget about how RoleCatcher's AI can give you that personalized edge throughout the entire process.
Yeah, it's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
It really is. So to everyone out there prepping for an import-export specialist interview, remember, you've got this.
The world needs people who care about animals and can handle the complex world of global trade. Go out there and show them what you're made of.
And let RoleCatcher help you every step of the way.
That's it for a deep dive into acing your interview. We hope you're feeling empowered and ready to take on the world. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep chasing those dreams.